Hi, everyone. It's me, Andrew. How are you all doing on this beautiful Sunday? I think it's beautiful. I haven't looked outside yet. I was told it's beautiful by others who have been outside. They insist that outside is beautiful. My hair is looking really ratty. Really ratty. Really ratty. Folks, it's really disgusting underneath this wave cap. It is very disgusting under this wave cap. We are not going to discuss what's under the wave cap because it's disgusting. No need. I'll be getting a haircut tomorrow, and this business, this ugly business, will be sorted. You don't have to worry about a damn thing. I promise you. I promise that to you, folks. That, that, I promise you. So, busy week. Busy week. Anything big in the news happen? Anything big in the news happen, you guys? I'm just messing with you, but seriously, folks, anything in the news big in the news happened this week? The Senate race in Arizona was called. Carrie Lake will not, in fact, be the next senator in Arizona. She lost her. Oh, that's not who I want. I want me. That's Hassan Piker. I want me. Let me go to my channel because I'm live. Um, sure. Let me just. No, I want mod view. Sorry. This is why you're supposed to do all this shit before the stream. Stream manager. There we go. Um. So what's happening? What's going on? What is happening? Um, I mean, I always do a little chat before I start playing my games, but this time I straight up changed the category because I don't know how long I'm gonna go. I might go for 10 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. I streamed for like almost 5 hours last Sunday. And that was just on accident. Like I was not planning a long stream, but it just sort of happened. And then I spent the last 40 minutes talking about the election. I don't even remember really what I said. Um, I know I expressed some frustration, maybe even a little anger with the Democratic nominee Kamala Kamala Harris. I don't know if I shared my prediction of whether or not I thought she would win. I think at that point last week I had her barely winning. Like my thought was like, okay, the Madison Square Garden stuff is like kind of unambiguously just evil. And I thought that that might tip a few people who were on the margins onto her side just out of self preservation. But prior to that, my opinion for most of October was that she was going to lose. Um, because I saw the writing on the wall. And I guess that's what we're gonna start off with. That's what we're gonna talk about. Um, how right I was. No, I'm just kidding. Um, let's go back to July when she became the nominee. I am not. I'm registered. I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm a leftist. I'm a socialist. I'm pretty much. I don't like to. I don't like to say I'm a communist just because I don't. I'm not gonna lie to you folks. Like I know a lot about politics, but like I can't tell you what that would mean for me as far as policy goes. Like if I were to list out all of my policy positions and you were to be like, well, that makes you a communist, I'd be like, okay, sure, why not? I don't really care about the labels. I feel comfortable saying socialist, democratic socialist, whatever. Um, because I feel like I have a better handling on that definition, whereas communism, I think commune not a lot of things, but it comes with a lot of connotations and permutations and stuff like that. That I'm just not that. well read on to confidently speak on like all of the minutia and all that stuff. So I'm very far left though, like pro-abortion, pro-housing for all, pro-immigration, like not even minimum wage, like a living wage. I already said housing, I think. So that's where I land. Like anti-military, anti-militarized police. Honestly, policing to a large extent. Um, Even though I will concede that to some extent you need some form of law enforcement because there's violent people out there, and it would be nice to have a competent enforcement apparatus that doesn't turn their attention towards marginalized communities to hurt them. It'd be nice to have that. I don't think we have that, honestly. I don't think cops are protecting people. I think they are really good at protecting property. If you're a Walgreens, if you're a Target during a protest, they're there for you. They're right on top of you, man. So that's my where my political leanings come. So obviously wasn't super thrilled with the Obama 8 years. Obviously wasn't super thrilled with Hillary Clinton as the Democratic pick. Obviously wasn't a huge fan of Joe Biden being the pick. And then we kind of wrap back around to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Oh my god, I need the fucking guidebook on how to say her name. Kamala. Kamala. I know the la. Kamala? Kamala. Whatever. Um so we wrap back around to her. In July, she became the nominee because Joe Biden decided to finally step down. And I let myself be a little bit excited because I I know who she is, but my excitement came from the fact that the Democratic Party by and large was looking at Biden as a candidate, seeing that matchup between him and Trump and being like, no. He's going to get fucking demolished. And so I felt like that thinking also came with an understanding that his policy positions, like him pivoting right, his focus on stuff like NATO, his response to the war in Gaza, um, his more conservative instincts were going to hurt him. And so I thought that them really being gung ho about Kamala Harris was a sign that they were to some degree listening. I know they're not going to be like, all right, we're going to fucking follow the Bernie Sanders playbook to a T and blah blah blah. I know that, but I thought that in itself was like an indication of better things to come. And then she picked Tim Walz as her running mate. Again, I'm a leftist. I'm to the left. I don't even know if I like saying leftist anymore because they're so annoying. But I am very far left. And that pick excited me. He's done a lot of great things for Minnesota. Like as far as I can like a Democrat, I think his instincts, a lot of his policy positions are what I would personally be like expecting from a good Democratic Party. Like a good Democratic Party, in my eyes, is not going to be what I want. But they would still be doing things that will at least indicate, like it's at least in the ballpark. Like I know, like you're not going to get a far left person until we really radically change our expectations for our politicians. So within the Democratic framework, Tim Walz is almost as good as you can get. And so I was excited. I was like, oh shit, this is like telling me that she is going to do X, Y, and Z to win over voters. She's going to make certain promises. And with her and Tim Walz, that kind of is going to really get out the vote and inspire and blah blah blah, all that boring political shit that people in DC swear is relevant. Okay. And then none of that happened. She did not distance herself from Joe Biden, which was like crazy. Anyone with eyes and ears and a pulse could see how unpopular he was. And she did not distance herself from him on anything. Mistake number one. Mistake number two, muzzling Tim Walz. I just listed all these amazing things that Walz brings to the table. Not just policy, but his personality. He's really good at just talking plainly about really important things. He knows how to pivot away from culture war debates and be like, well, hey, let's feed kids. Like, I passed universal school lunches in Minnesota. Like, why does it matter how you identify? Why does it matter who you're in love with? Like, let's just feed these fucking kids. Great. Great. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Republicans are weird. Yes, they are. Say that shit. Weeks later, none of that. None of that. They weren't putting him out in front of people. He was they told him to tamp down the negativity on their opponents who they also love to talk about how evil and fascist they are. Let's just lower the temperature on that. Let's be about joy and love and positivity and la 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 li, li, li. And that's you're running a presidential campaign and you're starting late. And that's the tactic. That's two. Three, three is tied with one. Uh, in that she didn't distance herself from Biden on one of his most unpopular positions, the war in Gaza. I'm over here. Sorry, the war in Gaza. Look, the Democrats are just as much in love with Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, as you can get. Joe Biden has said that he himself is a Zionist time and time again. That is just how he is for whatever reason. And he always has been like that. This is an ideological position that he's had since before I was fucking born. All right. And she didn't move away from him on that. Even a little bit of softening the language, even a little bit of listening to the uncommitted voters in the swing states that she needed to win. Nothing. Nothing. Not until like a week before the election, by the way. Nothing. Nothing. And I'm like, that's not an exaggeration. Nothing. As a matter of fact, in some places, she actually went worse. And that was just her position. It was just, yeah, fuck it. Fuck off. No. I'm not doing that. I'm not abandoning our allies. It's heartbreaking that the people in Gaza are suffering, but it's at the cost of Israel's security, so suck it. Fuck off. There are huge protests in the streets. There are people who were, again, going out to vote in primaries, specifically to say uncommitted, non committed. And you didn't give them an olive branch. You didn't even give them a branch. You didn't even give them a leaf. Nothing. You told them to suck it up. You told them to suck it up. That's what she did. So that's three. We're only on three. I'm not even done yet. The Cheneys, which is tied into number four, which is trying to get this mysterious never Trumper Republican vote that apparently is in the hundreds of thousands because that's what you need and that's what she needed in those swing states to swing the balance. That was a strategy. Let's widen our tent, which is not what she did. She didn't widen her tent. She moved the tent. She picked up the tent and moved it to the right. So she widened the tent, then she would have also widened it to include progressives and people like me, but she didn't. She didn't fucking like even attempt to do that. So she just moved the tent over to where the Republicans were, and was like, "Hey, I know Donald Trump scares you. I am less scary. And I like a lot of the things he likes, like a border wall, like Dick Cheney, like war. Here's the problem with that. All that stuff, well, with the exception of the Cheneys, which we'll get to, all of that stuff was offered in your opponent. If people love immigration reforms, quote unquote, if people hate war, I don't know, man. If like a lot of what she was offering is in the Republican platform. If they wanted that, they know where to go. It's the guy who hasn't shut up about it for the past 8 years. So at least in that sense, in that regard, he's at least ideologically consistent, even though he's not. But whatever. So why would they trust you, this the VP of a candidate that maybe they like, maybe they don't like? What's the data on that? Who cares? We're moving the party right. Um, so that's 4. Is there a 5? Oh, I didn't even talk about the Cheneys. Her love of the Cheneys. So, in the time since the election and today, there's been numerous articles about how the campaign begged her not to attach herself to Liz Cheney, not to promote how much you love Dick Cheney. They begged her. Why? Because people like me fucking hate the Cheneys. People like me cannot say what they want to happen to the Cheneys on Twitch or on Twitter. Okay? Dick Cheney has a higher body count, not sexually, or maybe sexually, I don't know. But he has a higher body count in terms of people he's killed, deaths he's responsible for, than Donald Trump. In almost every metric, actually, he is worse than Donald Trump. But he's pro democracy. He's pro. I guess that's it. And I don't. And he's not even that. He literally stole the election in 2000 for George W. Bush. Like he's also done election interference and literally stolen an election. People under the age of, I don't know, 40 know him as evil incarnate. Liz Cheney, a little bit less known, but still a horrible, awful, terrible, fucking monstrous. And she said horrible things about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Have I not said her name out loud that many times before? Anyway, Liz Cheney is the fucking worst. I thought it was good that she lost her seat. She lost her seat to someone to the right of her. And I don't like. Why would I give a shit? She's not my elected representative. Also, her vote, like those that was her constituency. The people who elected her the first time decided not to elect her again. So who is she for? Why would Democrats show up to rallies to hear you talk to her? This fake unity shit doesn't work. Especially when the person you're unifying with is incredibly unpopular. So, all that stuff was why I thought she was going to lose. Because in the midst of all of that, there's just no policy. There's nothing to get excited about. She had her small business shit, which I made fun of last week. Who benefits from small business tax cuts? Who benefits from that shit? She had some good stuff in there too, like the family, like if you're starting a family, like the tax credits there and stuff like that. But a lot of that shit is just not going to affect the vast majority of people, or it's passed a lot of those people by. Like there's a lot of people who are not first time home owners, so they won't benefit from that. There's a lot of people who already have families, adult children, they won't benefit from that. There's a lot of people who have no interest in starting a small business, they won't benefit from that. What are you doing to change the material conditions for the people who are voting for you? What can someone say? What can someone turn around to someone who is on the fence about voting for Kamala Harris and say, here's how your life will look different in 4 years? if she were to be elected. What do you say to that person? Well, you won't be dead. The water won't be toxic. The air won't be toxic. Um, I don't. Like, I can't even say gun stuff. That's the other problem is that we're currently living under an administration that she's part of, and like during his administration 2 years ago, we lost Roe versus Wade. So like even like oh you'll have choice. You'll have abortion rights. It's like okay, well you lost them under the Biden administration. So why hasn't he just done whatever she's gonna do? Even her solution to that, the way she presented it when she was at rallies was, and when I get a bill to codify Roe v. Wade, I will sign it into law. Let's say she had gotten elected. We lost the Senate. And I don't know. I still don't know who's in control of the House. As of today, I don't think that has been determined. Um. So how? I really can't begin to impart to you how damaging it would be if we elected Kamala Harris, and after 4 years, she hasn't codified Roe versus Wade. Like, I don't think the Democrats would win an election for like the next 24 years if that reality were to have come to pass. Because there's a huge chance that that's exactly what would have happened. Or we would have gotten some really weird, watered down abortion shit that didn't really enshrine what kind of protected whatever rights were already there or something like that. I don't know. Who knows? And it's not even worth speculating about because she didn't win. She didn't win. Um, and so like that's why I didn't think she was going to win, and then she didn't. So I was right. But that's not really the point. The point is, where do we go from here? Um, like I had a few friends like reach out to me, like, oh Andrew, you okay? Like very concerned because they're also concerned, but like not for my sake, but like maybe they wanted to vent through how they were feeling with me, someone who they know is politically engaged. And like honestly, like it just hasn't hit me in that sense that like oh we're gonna be dealing with that for the next 4 years. It's more so just an understanding that um it's gonna be bad and there's just not much I can do about it. Like politically speaking, I felt helpless for so long, and this is just kind of like I don't know. Um, like you just feel powerless because like for me, it wasn't election night. It was after her DNC speech. I like sorry, I'm a bit congested all week because I sleep with my window open like an idiot, like a baby. I like the fall air. Okay, it gives you fucking sinus problems and congestion problems, but I like the way it feels. Okay, it's nice. Um, I was so pissed off after her um speech at the DNC. After that whole convention, really, because that told me she was gonna lose. Like I knew she was gonna lose after that speech. I remember I got into like a debate with my dad, who was like, "What do you want her to do? You know, what is she supposed to say about Gaza? She's gonna lose the pro-Israeli vote or whatever." And I was like, "No, she's not. Like they're not gonna like a lot of those voters are just never gonna vote for Trump. But there are people who have already indicated that they are not going to vote for you if you keep supporting this stupid war and genocide." But it wasn't even just what she said about Gaza. Like the thing to realize is that as horrible as what's happening there, it's just not on the minds of most people who are voting. At least in that sense. A lot of the people who didn't vote for voted for that reason, but that is not the reason. Um, there's a path to victory that she had where she could have still won without changing her position on that. Unfortunately, Um, but she just wasn't presenting anything new in her speech. It was just her some speech mixed in with a little bit more jingoism, mixed in with a little more right wing extremism, and it was pissing me off the longer I listened to it. Um, there's a lot of talk about Latinos right now, and I'm not Latino. I'm not Latinx, whatever is the term right now. I don't want to step on any. Um, I was disconnected from chat. Stream still up? No, it is. Um, I'm not part of that community, so I can't speak broadly on the minutia of what would get someone to vote for Trump who isn't white, right? But what I can say with some degree of certainty is that her position on immigration is almost indistinguishable from that of the Republican Party. And that was what she was presenting the entire election. That position is how you lose Nevada and Arizona, two states that I knew she was going to lose. Well, Nevada, I didn't think she was going to lose, but she did. She did lose that. I did know she was going to lose Arizona because of how her position on immigration is. So you're probably asking yourself, well, why would she lose in Arizona, of all places, when Donald Trump's position is worse? That's the thing. It is worse in some ways, but it's also the same in a lot of ways. So if someone is voting for her based on their concern about the border, why would they pick the watered down version of what the other guy is saying he'll do? But also, with that is an acknowledgement that the framing of the immigration debate is correct on the Republican side. When you say, I'm supporting this right wing immigration bill that the Republicans refuse to act on, you're saying that, oh no, they're right. They just don't want to do anything because they want to give Trump credit for it. Which, why, like, that's not going to get someone who is left leaning or thinking that you're for them. That's not going to get them off the couch to vote for you. That's the thing. It's not that a lot of those votes just decided. I mean, some of them did. Some of them were like, okay, well, if you're saying this is a problem, then I'm going to go with the guy who's been saying it's a problem, as opposed to the person who is just now saying it's a problem and offering solutions that, in comparison, aren't as extreme, effective. So you lose those people, and then you don't get the people who are primed to want you to get up because you're just going to do the thing that they don't want them to do. You're not listening to them. You're telling them to fuck off. Um, so that's how you lose there. I lost my train of thought. Oh, the DNC. So I was just mad. I was so upset because she just didn't present a compelling case, except for we're the politics of joy. We're the politics of we love America. We love hard work. We blah 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 blah. Like, you're not speaking to anything concrete, anything real. It's just so nebulous and for no reason. There's immediate things that you can do. There are very specific problems that you can point to. She was great on abortion to an extent. I think she was fine on abortion stuff. But even then, um, a lot of that comes down to, well, why haven't you just fixed it now? Like, we're not living under a Republican administration right now. We're under a Democratic one. So how are you going to get people to vote for you when it's just like, well, why don't you just do it now? Why don't you just fix it now? Why don't you just present bills now? Like, the Democrats still have control of the Senate. They don't have control of the House, which is where you would need to start that whole thing anyway. But you could still try. You could still indicate to someone that you're going to give a shit. He didn't. Um, like, the biggest thing for me though, like, the big thing for me honestly was Gaza. Like, honestly, but like, and I indicated that in my when I talked about it last week. But more broadly speaking, a lot of my rage was at the fact that they were just not rising to the moment. People still remember the Black Lives Matter protests because that was a moment in time. People still remember the Mike Brown, Ferguson uprising stuff from many years ago, and then they obviously remember the George Floyd stuff from a few years back. People still remember those moments because they were just moments in time that changed the conversation, that changed dynamics, that changed policy. Not literally, but like just in terms of like this is now a topic in the discussion. Didn't lead to anything substantive, unfortunately, but that was moments in time, and that was a moment in time that demanded both parties rise up to it and offer something, or at least pretend to. And the Democrats just kind of closed their eyes and pretended that all the stuff in Gaza wasn't happening. But not even just that, they also pretended that the huge response, the anger, the fury, the rage, the protests that were happening outside of the DNC just weren't happening. Like, it's a moment in time. The student protests that were led by some really amazing students on college campuses, and then obviously the huge protests happening now. We have the BDS movement, which has been around for a long time, and there was no rising to that. There was no acknowledgement of that on a very serious scale. DNC didn't have any Palestinian speakers. No one's speaking to that conflict from that point of view. But they did have the parents of an Israeli hostage, which, if you're gonna like, I get it. You gotta have that. But if you're not gonna present the other victims of this conflict, and you're not gonna give them equal stage presence, equal respect, then you're telling the communities that are affected to go fuck themselves. You are. You are. Like, a lot of right now, a lot of liberals are on Twitter and on TikTok and being like, "Well, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. You're gonna get Gaza times two. You're gonna get Gaza, but worse. You're gonna get immigration, but worse." And it's like, I don't think people quite understand what that means. For someone experiencing the worst atrocities in their lives, turning up the temperature, like, it's gonna feel horrible in the moment, but the thought of that isn't really all that fucking important. If a fucking building reduced your loved one to nothing, to dust, what does that matter? Why is that incentive? Oh great, I have two options. Genocide that's a little bit nicer about it, genocide, or genocide. Well, if Kamala were in office, we could at least protest her more left. First of all, you weren't. You weren't protesting her right now. So what is this with, like, how am I supposed to protest? I saw a tweet about this, like, how am I supposed to protest? How am I supposed to protest Gaza now that Trump is on office? Well, first of all, you're still not. So that's how we know that you're just using that as a way to make them feel bad. Um so that's kind of it. It's like, okay, well, you're not doing anything. That's the problem, is that you're not. You're not. Um and that is like a big reason why I figured she was gonna lose, and it's a big reason why she did lose. Um so yeah, I've just been a little numb because, like, again, if you are politically in tuned at all, like, you would have seen this coming. Um, so I guess that brings up the next question. Like, what do we do now? And the answer honestly is I don't know. Not because I think all hope is lost. I've never given in to doomerism. Like, I still support what I support, and I still fight for what I want to fight for. Um, on a personal level, like I just like I'm just gonna continue donating. I'm gonna continue raising awareness to issues that I care about. I'm gonna continue talking to people in my life. My coworkers, they're not they're not politically minded in the way that I am, but I think a very interesting thing to remember is that left wing politics are very popular. The thing that's not popular is the label. It's people don't like being attached to political ideology, and especially when it's viewed as extreme. Doesn't matter what it is. You can ask someone down the list, do you support this? Does this make sense? The framing matters, the intent matters. Like people, like if you ask people, are you for mass deportations? They're like, yeah. But then when you also ask them, are you for amnesty? Are you for like these very compassionate responses to helping people who have immigrated here? They're like, yeah. Like like people's instinct is to be like police, police, police. Yes, we want this extreme answer to this problem because it sounds right. It sounds powerful. It sounds effective. But then when you also are like, okay, but what if we did this? And it's compassionate, but it also sounds effective. People are for that. The problem is a lot of our media frames things in a right wing manner, and that's pretty much across the board. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, obviously, but then like your local news, the news that people watch a lot of, which as popular as Fox News is, local news gets a ton of play. And like, I live in California, liberal blue California, California, and crime panic is like all they talk about. So, like, it's all framed in a right wing way. That's what they talk about. That's what makes the headline. It's like, oh my god, someone broke into this jewelry store. What are we gonna do? It's like, man, I don't fucking know. I don't run a jewelry store. Like, but like, you see those headlines, and you're just like, wow, we're under siege from crime. And then you look at the crime statistics, and it's like crime's been at an all-time low. But even just saying that is just like, that can't be right. What? At an all-time low? What? Andrew, crime at an all-time low? I don't know about that, Andrew. Crime at an all-time low. Like you just instinctively are like, no, it's not. It's bad. I know it's bad. Why? Because it's bad. California's on fire. Portland's on fire. Seattle's on fire. You just think that. And it's because the news just presents it that way. And subconsciously you take it in. And then you see homelessness. You see it with your eyes. And instead of just hold on. Someone gonna get that? I heard a knock. Alright, hold on, let me pause for a sec. Alright, sorry. Where was I? So yeah, you hear that a lot. You hear that framing a lot on issues. Um so like yeah, where you get your news from is important, and a lot of people are getting fed a lot of really horrible shit that changes their perspective on a lot of really unpopular things. In California, we voted for slavery. We voted against abolishing slavery, which honestly fucked me up a lot more than Trump winning. We had Prop 6, which was just, hey, do you support having incarcerated people do labor for $0 and 0 cents, or just pennies on the dollar. Like we had some very horrible fires a few years ago. We have horrible fires every year, but we had to enlist the help of prisoners, incarcerated people, to fight the fires. And the funniest thing about it is that the ones who we get to do that are not the super scary violent criminals, because obviously that would be fucking insane. Like someone who's just out of their mind, a killer, you're not gonna get them to be able to effectively do anything, right? As far as like work. They get the small time offenders, the non-violent ones, to do that stuff. But a lot of people went into that voting booth and they saw punishments for bad people. Those bad people over there. Should they do manual labor? Yeah, they don't do shit. Why? They get a free bed. They get a free meal. They get free health care. Fuck it. They should be slaves. Watch 13th on Netflix. It's Ava DuVernay documentary. And millions of Californians in blue state California were like, yeah, fuck you. Go fucking fight some fires, you prisoners. Um Voted down rent control. We voted to increase penalties for like stealing and just minor crimes, because we're tough on crime. We're tough guys. We want to, like, we live in a apocalypse zone. I live in California. I had to beat someone to death today because they were trying to kill me. It's scary outside. It's scary in LA. You can't walk 2 feet without someone trying to get you. They're gonna get you. And then people vote for that stuff. And they vote for it because they vote for that stuff. They vote for Donald Trump because, on a fundamental level, they don't think the bad things are going to happen. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll use an example. Gaza. Like, going back to Gaza again, because like I feel like the past year has opened my eyes to so many things. The suffering there. Like you can go on Twitter right now. You can see videos of people in hospital beds being burned alive. IVs are connected to their bodies. They're burning. They're dying. They're screaming for help. And fires caused by American bombs that we pay for with our tax dollars. And we couldn't get a Democratic president to acknowledge that pain. We couldn't get a Democratic candidate for president to substantively pivot and to offer an alternative to that suffering. Babies with their heads blown off, split wide open, kids crushed under rubble, babies, newborn babies, dead in their cribs. Nothing. And that's from conservatives and also from liberals. All that stuff is happening under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris did not provide a legitimate counter to those crimes I just listed out. But like if you voted for her, that is you saying that I acknowledge that suffering for them. And I acknowledge the horribleness of that suffering. But things will get so much worse if we don't pick her, which is the truth. It is the truth. That is true. But you made that calculus. A lot of people pro Palestine, a lot of people pro ending the suffering in Gaza still voted for her because they wanted them. Some of them did that so as harm reduction, which I get it. But some of them did it because they thought that they could fix things more effectively with her in charge. And some of them did it because of all those things. Plus, they think that she's not going to do as bad a job as Donald Trump. They chose to believe that the suffering and the horror and the carnage that we've seen up until now will subside under her, or at the very least won't be as bad. That is the same logic that Republican voters use to elect Donald Trump. You're not an illegal immigrant. Okay. But he's gonna lower my taxes. He's gonna lower my cost of groceries. He's gonna do this and this. Obviously he's not gonna set up fucking camps for immigrants to round them up and deport them. He's only gonna deport the bad ones. 2016, you can just go back to his presidency. He fucking had kids in cages. Not that the Biden administration did much to change that either. He had family separation. He had the Muslim ban. You can go back and see what he did. Just the same way with Kamala Harris, you can see their response to Gaza. But a lot of the people who voted for him do not think that the worst things the Democrats say about him will happen. It's the same logic. You're looking at the good and saying, okay, the bad is obviously not going to be as bad as people say, because why would it? Even though there's evidence that it would. He said it. Kamala Harris talked about having the most lethal military. Why the fuck would you say that? Why would that even be something you aspire to have? The most lethal military. She said it. She said it. Nobody made her say it. She said it. That's how you get people who are on the margins to vote against, to or at least, yeah, to vote against their interests. Because right now their material reality is fucking dog shit. And you have someone promising them the world. All they have to do is sweep up the others, just get them out of the way, and we pinky promise, we'll only get the bad ones. And you just believe it. I know a lot of people. I know he's a very divisive person, but Hassan Piker had on a person who voted Republican. Actually, he had two different people on. One who said he was going to vote for Donald Trump, and one person who did vote for Donald Trump. And the conversation was fascinating because Hassan didn't attack them. He didn't berate them. He just laid out his frustration with the Democratic Party, and then he also laid out what the Trump administration is going to do. And the thing that is very much the same between both of those people he interviewed is that they fundamentally just did not believe the horrible fascist Nazi rhetoric that Trump espoused would come into play in his policies at all, even though he said it. They just didn't believe it. Hassan would be like, "Here's the thing that he said during his presidency. Here's this thing that he said he'd do," and they'd just be like, "What? No, what? No, he didn't. What? That's not what he meant." It's so easy. Like I don't think people quite understand the degree to which it's easy for people to just ignore the red flags. We ignore them all the time. Um, which is both frustrating, but it also gives me hope. And it's also why I liked Tim Walz, because he was good at breaking down policy positions into ways that just make sense. Um, it wasn't in like fancy like here's how this bill will do this and this and that. It's just do you think do you think it's right that kids will go to school, something that's required by law, and not be able to eat? The 7-year-olds whose family's too poor. Hello, Quixotex. Welcome. Well, I'll be getting to Kingdom Hearts in just a moment, but I'm right now I'm yapping about the election. Um, what was I? Yeah, like this is why I liked Tim Walz. Like he was able to like just talk about it in like a very human way, not in a very prepared, robotic way that Kamala Harris liked to do or not do, which I don't think she did, honestly. She didn't really talk to, like, she talked about joy. She talked about very nebulous concepts a lot. But you really just need someone to just talk to people like they're babies. And like it sounds dismissive, but politics can just be so heady sometimes. And you just need to simple it down. You can get a lot done if you just talk to people like excuse me. If you just talk to them about like, hey, do you think that people should just be hungry? A lot of people will be like, no, I don't want people to be hungry. I just want the fair share of blah 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 blah. And you're just like, okay, well, let's do this and this, and people can just not be hungry. Like, it's a problem, it's a solvable problem. And a lot of people just be on board with that because nobody wants to be a monster. How you doing, Chaotix? I was there for part of your stream when you're talking about Latinos for Trump. I'm not a Latino, so I'm talking about why Kamala Harris lost. Um, it's like interesting because again, I was talking about how a lot of liberals, a lot of people on the left are frustrated with people voting against their interests. Um, my theory, not for Latinos, more so broadly speaking, for everyone who didn't vote for her, which was marginally speaking, not as many people as you might think. And that's what's so frustrating. Like a lot of liberals, like there's like the video going around on Twitter and TikTok of this guy who's like, "All right, you guys voted for him, so I'm gonna call ICE on you," and it's like, that's horrible. That's monstrous. That's evil. It's evil. It's an evil thing that you're suggesting. Um, there's no comeuppance with voting for someone you disagree with or someone you hate. The comeuppance is just going to happen. It's just it's like like for me, there's no satisfaction in knowing that some of the people who voted for him are going to suffer. Not because I think they don't deserve to suffer. I'm sure some of them do, whatever that means. But in the moment, they're just not going to make that connection. No one's going to be thinking, oh, God, if only I'd voted for Kamala Harris. If only I'd voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Nobody's thinking that in those moments. Like when a hurricane hits, nobody's thinking, oh, shit, we should have did something about climate change. They're thinking, fuck, my house is being blown away. When you know, when the price of groceries is going up, nobody's thinking about how tax cuts for the wealthy didn't trickle down to them. They're thinking, fuck, this box of cereal costs $7 now. You know? Um there's no comeuppance. Like there's like it doesn't stick around in the person's in the public consciousness. You have to meet people where they are in that moment. Kamala lost in a lot of swing states because her immigration policy was horrible. It was horrible. It was just a Republican shit. And a lot of the people who would have been primed to vote for her didn't see a reason to get up off the couch and do it. She lost by smaller margins than Biden won in a lot of places. A lot of those are voters that just didn't go. They didn't go to vote. Um so like sure we can look at the ways that certain vote communities swung. Like he gained votes with black people. He gained votes with Latinos. He gained votes with Muslims. But a lot of that is like sure there's like a right wing shift in some sense. There's a lot of right wing framing on issues, but the easiest way to counter that is just to present really smart people talking very plainly about these issues. I think Tim Walz was doing a great job of that until the campaign tamped him down. It's why Bernie Sanders was so monumentally popular with these communities. He was hugely popular with Latinos. Huge. And a liberal will be like, well, okay, then why didn't he win the primary? Well, that's a different conversation. You're voting with it. That conversation is within registered Democrats in a lot of areas. going up against someone like it's just so different. It's just not a general election. But you had someone who was able to speak plainly about a lot of these issues. And instead they're like, let's focus test this shit. Let's get this fucking robot out here to talk about fucking small business credits, you know? Nebulous shit that just doesn't feel material, doesn't feel specific. And what do you do with that? Donald Trump is saying he's gonna do that. He's gonna end wars. He's just saying shit. He's just saying what you want to hear. But it's still saying something. It's still saying something. And the people on the margins, they're gonna see like, okay, yeah, sure, he wants to deport 20 million immigrants, undocumented immigrants, but he's not gonna really do it. He's just gonna go after the violent ones. He's just gonna go after the scary ones. Even though no, he's not. He's gonna go after all of them. But you're convincing yourself the same way that Democrats convince themselves that Kamala Harris would not be a horrible person on Gaza, and you're choosing, in their minds, the lesser of two evils. Everyone does it, which is why you can't just leave it up to very nebulous, very vague promises. Um, so I guess I guess the important thing is to don't forget about your community. Don't don't give up on them. Um, I know it feels like everything. Like I know certain people feel like this is an indictment on you or your personhood. To some degree, maybe it is a little bit, but people choose selfishness a lot of the time. But they choose selfishness a lot of the time because what else is there for them? For a lot of people, there's no real mechanisms for just growth and community for a lot of people. A lot of us are just isolated, and a lot of us have this misconception that we'll never be in the worst situation that we possibly can be in. Um, it's with pretty much every issue, the immigration issue. Right now, a lot of people voted against their self interest. Like they voted to essentially deport undocumented immigrants, even though they themselves know people or have family members or were once undocumented. And some of them were like, "I'm a good one, but what about the bad ones?" And they don't think that they can be targeted. Homelessness. I would say the vast majority of people honestly believe that they have a better shot at becoming a millionaire than they do of becoming homeless or unhoused or however you want to say it. Like people just don't think that they're gonna lose everything or they'll come upon hard times or they'll they'll become addicted, like they'll suffer from substance abuse. They think that they're strong or that they're hard workers, and so they just think that it's just that impossible. That those misfortunes that become other people or that fall on other people are because they didn't work hard enough or they didn't try hard enough, and they think that, hey, I'm on my way up, and they don't think that they're this close to being really really what's the word, um just suffering from that sort of thing. A lot of people, I keep coming back to the war, but like people think I'm not gonna be on the receiving end of American-made bombs. I'm not gonna be on the receiving end of a police state, of a hyper-militarized police or a very much unchained military. They think that they won't be on. They think that they won't, or that their family who live overseas won't. But that's all emboldened by our elected officials, they don't see consequences for that. And empire beckons. The prospects of colonialism, of spreading their own ideology and taking land, stealing oil, stealing resources, resource grabs, land grabs, those always remain unchallenged. And it's only a matter of time before those actions are at your doorstep. Climate change. People don't think that they're going to be in the path of the worst tornado on record. They don't think they'll be in the path of a hurricane, worst hurricane on record. They don't think they're going to die of heat exhaustion. They don't think their homes are going to go up in flames. They think someone else's will. And that's the fundamental problem with capitalism. Capitalism demands losers. Capitalism demands that some people have to lose. Not might, not may, not have the choice to. Capitalism requires some people to lose. And the diehard capitalists know this, and they just know that it's not going to be them. And regular people, for whatever reason, think that they're just not going to be on the receiving end of all those consequences. But the thing is, for capitalism to work and make rich people richer, someone's got to pay. Homelessness can be solved, but that's not capitalist. Some people are going to be on the receiving end. Some people are not going to get those jobs. There's not an infinite amount of jobs. There's not an infinite amount of high paying good jobs, you know? Someone's going to be suffering. Someone has to be exploited. Who's going to make your gadgets? Who's going to use those components you bought and build your iPhones? Capitalism requires that someone builds it for a tiny sliver of money in some part of the world. You know? And that's the choice that a lot of people make when they go to vote, and that's just because there's no alternative. No one's presenting compassion. No one's presenting easy answers to easy problems. Like, sorry, the solution to ending homelessness is giving people homes. That's not capitalist. So we don't. Universal basic income, free healthcare. Healthcare markets require that some people just have bad coverage, or that really sick people just don't get good coverage to some extent. I'm oversimplifying in some of those places, but it would be like the solution to healthcare is just make it free. Education. It's just some people require to just fail, not succeed, not have resources in their schools, not have access to college. So I think Donald Trump's reelection, just highlights a lot of that stuff. Is that people just are just in a holding pattern. They're surrounded, and when they're faced with annihilation, they're gonna choose themselves. They're not gonna help their neighbors. But for whatever reason, I still believe it. A lot of people want to. A lot of people want that option. A lot of people want to be presented with that option. They want to be presented with candidates who give them that option. And there's people fighting for that. But we need to fight our way out of what we currently have. We blame migrants for everything. We blame poor people for everything. Price of your groceries have gone up. Oh, it's because of people on welfare. It's because a undocumented immigrant got a free bus pass or whatever. It's like, are you like ask yourself two questions: Are you doing well, and are they doing well? Are the people who are supposedly taking everything from you doing well? Are they doing well? Are they well off? Are they comfortable? Do they have no stress, no worries? Republicans are so good at wedge issues. They're so good at just pitting you against your neighbor, pitting white people against black people, gay people against straight people, trans people against everyone. You know, and to some degree we let them. We let them win. We let them have that perspective. Have that perspective win out. We frame those arguments in those ways, those toxic ways. So we have to fight against that. Because when you lay it out simply, and I've done this before, it's crazy to talk to people and have these conversations with people and to like just you're not talking about like oh you have to elect blah 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 or you have to go to Bernie Sanders. You just talk to them like should we get paid more? Should people at the top who make way too much money get paid a little less? Why should they get paid more? Are you really telling me that the person on food stamps is doing so much that's so much taking away so much from you? Do you really believe that, or does the person who's living comfortably in the Hollywood Hills or in some penthouse in New York are they doing a little too well? And maybe some people will believe that that is just finding a new enemy to point at, but it's not even about enemies. They can be, maybe they should be, maybe some of them should be, but it's just fairness. It's just fairness. And I'm scared. I'm scared from a lot of the communities out there. But also, like I said this in the first segment, a lot of people who voted for him are gonna suffer, and that doesn't bring me satisfaction because I'm also gonna be suffering. I don't want to suffer. Like if I got my way, they wouldn't be suffering. I probably still don't like them, but they wouldn't be suffering either. But and like I know they're not gonna get better. This isn't a wait and see type situation. It's just like his policies aren't gonna help people. They're not. They're not. He had 4 years. Why didn't they get better? Why didn't they get better then? You know why. If you want him to win, if you want him to win because ideologically you're pro all the horrible things he says, that's one thing. Like there's a difference between someone who voted for Trump and someone who is a Trump supporter. A lot of Trump supporters are just hateful people. They are. A lot of them, a lot of people who voted for him just don't look at politics in that very clean way. Um, this is a point I wanted to make earlier, but it's a point I made earlier, but like I kind of want to expand on it. This idea that he's going to do these horrible things, and that a lot of people who voted for him genuinely don't believe him on the really bad stuff. They don't believe him. All they know is that inflation was as high when he was in office, which is true. It's not because of anything he did. It's just COVID-19 hadn't happened until the end of his presidency. It's that a lot of the stuff that happened, under Obama was still kind of just in place, just out of sheer virtue of just how laws work. A lot of laws kick in much later. And so like a lot of what he put into place, like his tax cuts and stuff, didn't really have time to gestate and have an effect on the economy, on jobs, on people's lives, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but yeah, they don't believe that he's gonna say or do those horrible things. And the other thing is that like again, I made the connection of like how people on the left made the calculus to sacrifice Palestinians. They just did. They did. That's not. There's no real way to reframe it. And you can be upset with that framing, but that's what happened. And people on the right chose to sacrifice immigrants. They chose to sacrifice women. They just they fundamentally don't believe that all the horrible things that he's promising are going to come to pass. That's just because people don't really have the language. They don't have the education as far as what does bigotry, hatred look like. Ask the most racist person if if they're racist. They're gonna say no, I'm not. Do I think that black people in Ivy League schools got in because of DEI? Yeah. Do I think black people commit more crimes than white people and are more dangerous just based on being black? Yeah, but I'm not racist. Transphobes. You ask a transphobe if they're transphobic, a lot of them are just gonna flat out tell you I'm not transphobic. Do I think that trans people should be in trans men? Excuse me, trans women should be in women's sports? No. What? Women? Men? Women who are born? I'm using their. I'm not. I don't. This is not how I would categorize them. But like they believe that they are not. They're lying. They believe that they're lying. Just transphobic, or that they have this insane advantage. But if you ask them if they're transphobic, they're like, "What? No, I don't want them to die. I just don't want to see them. I don't want to hear from them. I don't want to think about them. But I don't want them to die. I don't want my kids to be trans, but I don't think they should die." You know, same thing with gayness overall, like queer homosexuality. I don't want to hear about it, but I'm not homophobic. People don't believe bigots. They just don't believe that they think the threshold is so much higher. They think to be racist is so much higher. They think that you just have to be I don't even know. I don't even know. Some of them might not even believe that being in a hooded KKK robe is enough to be racist. But racism isn't how much you hate a certain race. It's like how supportive are you of these systems that oppress people? Or if you are perpetuating them, if you are enacting them, if you are enabling them. So, that's like the way around that is to just speak plainly. Let's not get it like you don't have to get into a debate every time. Sometimes you do have to get into these debates, but you don't have to get into a debate every single time someone is being transphobic. You just have to be like, really think about it. Like, you really have to tell them to think about it. Really think about this as a wedge issue. How affected are you by their presence, their transitions in the case of trans people, or them getting into higher education in the case of black people or whatever. And like it's frustrating because it's like people want to just crush fascism where it stands to some degree. Some people say that, but they don't put forward pathways to do so. But there's a lot of work, and a lot of that work is like meeting a lot of the people who aren't on the extreme, but who are there. Like they're not fully there, but they're there, and like talking to them and de-radicalizing them and decoupling a lot of the shit they see on Twitter, the shit they see on YouTube. That's work. That's gonna take work. Don't wait for these politicians either. All election cycle, Kamala Harris talked about how Donald's a fascist and how democracy's on the line. And then she lost, and she was like, "Well, we'll get him next time." Like she wasn't wrong, but also I don't think that they really believe it. Like I don't think they believe those claims. Like Hillary Clinton, like a lot of people on online and honestly just fans of hers were just like she tried to warn us, which is a weird thing to say about a political candidate. Like, yeah, we knew he was bad. Like, she wasn't the vanguard of that messaging. And where does she go? She fucked off after she left. I don't think she gave a. Did she give a speech? Maybe she did. She must have given a speech after she lost. But like, I remember just not hearing from her. And then she showed up for the inauguration to be presentable and respectful because that's what politicians care about most of all. But she wasn't part of the fight. She wasn't part of hashtag resistance Twitter, you know? She wasn't leading any initiative. She wasn't leveraging whatever political capital she had to like enact policy or to pressure politicians. She just left or made a Hulu documentary. Like they're not in the fight. This doesn't affect them. Which is probably why they're unable to galvanize people to support their causes, their candidacies, because they're not true believers. And I don't think Kamala is either. I think she was comfortable, and which is why she just kind of did things the way she wanted to do, and just didn't present a real ideology. And ultimately, that's why she failed. People don't want to see you hugging and kissing Liz Cheney. People want to see that you are really addressing the problems that they're facing. Because the most important takeaway shouldn't be that people turn their backs on queer communities, migrant communities. That a lot of people just weren't motivated. They didn't feel seen. They didn't go out to vote at all. In some places where they did vote, they just left it blank. Rashida Tlaib won huge in her district, not even close. And Kamala Harris lost that district. Same with Ilhan Omar. It's like, what do you do with that? There's easy data to point and show that people were just offended. Like, why the fuck did you send Bill Clinton out to Michigan? Why did you send Richie Torres out to Michigan to demean and talk down to people you want to vote for you, and tell them that to get over it, to get over watching their family members die in Gaza and in Lebanon, and to vote, even though you're not presenting them with an alternative. You didn't even counter third party candidates. Like the Democrats ran their first negative attack ad against a third party candidate. They went after Jill Stein, who I don't like. I don't like her. I didn't vote for her. I don't like Jill Stein. But in that attack, did they talk about why she's getting support from Muslim communities, Arab communities in Michigan? Did they address the underlying issue? Because it didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't vote for her in 2020. So what happened? Why aren't you speaking directly to their concerns? Instead, you're just like, Jill Stein, she's like Trump. It's like, what does that mean? At least Jill Stein is saying Palestine should be free and that the genocide in Gaza must end. At least she's saying it. Whether or not she believes it, who cares? But she's saying it. She can lie, at least. I don't know if she is lying, but she can at least say it. Anyways, I personally, he hasn't even been sworn in. It's still early, but I don't think we're at a place yet where the Democrats are still taking it seriously. And I think a lot of the leadership just needs to go. They just need to fuck off already. Let someone else try it, because they don't try left politics. They don't. Every election they're like, we need to go right. We need to go further right. And in 2020 they at least pretended. And that's when they did win. But then they went back to like, we need to go right. We need to go right. We need to go right. We need to sacrifice immigrants. We need to demonize Palestinians, etc. And they lost. So it's just more frustrating. It's just frustrating because you're just like, is this all there is? Are we just gonna watch this happen again when JD Vance runs in 2028, or when Donald Trump decides he's gonna do another 4 years and just ignore the Constitution and we're just powerless to stop it? That's a point I did want to make. The safeguards. Like it's the same. It's just so frustrating how Trump Republican legislation policies can just impact us for years and years and years, but then there's no safeguards to protect us, to protect the people who are on the other side. Barack Obama had a supermajority when he took office, didn't protect Roe v. Wade. Biden didn't have a supermajority, but he did have a majority. And did he attempt anything to protect Roe v. Wade before it was overturned? We knew we had the decision about that leaked ahead of time, by the way, and still nothing was done. There was an insurrection. What was done? Like we know the temperament of the other side. What was put in place to make sure that shit doesn't hit the fan if we lose? What work was there done? So it's like it's hard to take it seriously. Like they hold our lives in their hands and they don't take it seriously. And that's scary. I think that's scarier than Trump. I think it's scary that like who's looking out for us. So I guess we can take solace in the fact that like even in the midst of like a lot of badness, in the midst of like a lot of horribleness, communities organizing, that's always been the thing that's kind of moved us towards something better. Maybe a little slowly, but there's people doing that work. And I want to do that work and I hope you'll join me in doing that work as well. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this week. If you're feeling hopeless, I hope that you stop feeling that way. um, I'm gonna try to splice up the first half of my little talk with this little piece at the end. So if you didn't see Kingdom Hearts, then you're probably just watching the version of this where I just did that, where I spliced up the end of this section, combined it, because I talked for an hour about why I thought Kamala lost. It's more or less the same stuff. But if you're interested in hearing more, I did that there. So I'll probably upload that as a separate YouTube video. Maybe. Uh, we'll see. um, but yeah, I'll be back with more Kingdom Hearts next Sunday. So stick around for that. Yeah, we'll make it through. It's gonna suck. It really is gonna suck. Like I cannot understate or overstate the degree to which it's going to suck. Like if you have a kid in school, okay, like get them like load up on some additional materials now. Get a library card. It's like small things like that. Um, just have your affairs in order. Be ready. Um, food, be careful. That's all I can say. Like the thing about the food, like we've had listeria outbreaks, we've had E. coli outbreaks, and that stuff happens because of deregulation that is pushed by Republican administrations, and people are gonna get sick. And like again, it goes back to my earlier point. You don't think it's gonna happen to you, but you bite into some romaine lettuce and you get some fucking E. coli. It's because we elected the guy who said he's gonna deregulate those organizations. And those organizations, those companies are like, we would run so much more efficiently if we didn't have these regulations. And then what they end up doing is they do run more efficiently. They just skip a lot of the safety checks that protected us. And those are gone. I mean, a lot of them are gone. They're still gone. Like the Biden administration didn't do shit about that, which again goes back to my other earlier point. But we'll just keep going around in circles. But just be careful. Like all you can hope is that the negative stuff isn't gonna hit you. And if you're queer, if you're honestly even not just undocumented, if you're just an immigrant, if you're a person of color, like there's gonna be splashback, and all you can do is hope that it doesn't hit you. You don't want to be at the epicenter, and all we can do is fight and make sure and try to delay it or to minimize the damage. Because there will be, and you just gotta hope that it doesn't hit you or your community. And that sucks because it shouldn't be that way, but it is. But the takeaway is that the fight goes on. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good rest of your weekend. If you have tomorrow off, go say hello to a veteran, I guess. Until then, sayonara. See ya. What do wanna be ya. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.